What's up, guys? And thank you so much for tuning in to the next episode of Pave the Way. Today on the show, we have Jay Wallace. Jay is a local business owner. He owns the largest gun store in the United States, located over in Smyrna. And today he talks about building that brand to what it is today. Really pours out a lot of good knowledge and wisdom on us today. Talks a lot about what he's doing in the charity world, which really inspired us. And we're just so excited for you guys to hear his story. So without further ado, let's dive into Jay's story. What's up, guys? Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Today on the show, we've got Jay Wallace. Jay Wallace owns several local businesses here in the metro Atlanta area. So Jay, thank you so much for coming on, man. We appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I guess just start off, tell us a little bit about kind of your childhood, where you grew up and your upbringing.
All right. I was started off as, I lived in Calera, Alabama.
Oh, wow.
And I was there for a few months, and my parents moved to Birmingham.
Okay.
My dad was a World War II veteran, and he worked for Cipico, and so he was a welder. And then he changed over into the insurance business.
Okay.
And so I lived in Birmingham for 9 years, and then moved to Atlanta in the insurance business. He worked for Liberty National Insurance.
Okay.
And so I lived in Southwest Atlanta. In
Oh,
Big
wow.
Hill.
Oh, wow.
Moved over there in 65,
Okay.
1965, and enjoyed it. And was there for, let's see, I went from 9 years old there, 10, 11, 12, and then moved to Cartersville.
Okay.
And after in Cartersville, I was a blue and purple hurricane.
Okay.
So there in the 7th grade, and played baseball there. Matter of fact, where the Lowe's is, there used to be a field there that I played on. So that was great. I really enjoyed that. And my dad being in the insurance business, we moved back to Atlanta again and lived in Southwest Atlanta. And I went to Farrell High School.
Okay.
I was there at Farrell and left Farrell, and I was the youngest in my family. So my parents were older, and so they wanted to do something different. My dad retired from the insurance and got into the hotel motel business. And so we moved to Daytona.
Okay.
And I was in Daytona, lived on Daytona Beach for a year at 15 years old.
That's awesome.
Which is
Quite an experience. Good time to be there.
It was a good time. I enjoyed that. It was good. Went to Seabreeze High School.
Very cool.
That's really cool.
And so they were there. And what he did was they would go to hotels, motels that were having problems, and they'd go help them out.
Okay.
And get them going in the right direction.
Yeah.
And then move on to another one. So we were there and in Daytona at the Desert Inn.
That's awesome.
And left there and went to I can't think of the hotel right now. In Valdosta, the Horn Lodge, that was it.
Okay.
We went there, and they got that one started up and working good. I was there for a few months and went to Lounge High School in Georgia.
Man,
You jumped
so
all
you
around.
jumped
11th grade.
around.
Oh yeah, I've been all over the place. There's a lot to learn from moving from place to place. It's both good and bad.
Making new friends and all that.
Having to redo it every time.
Yeah, that's.
And left from Lounge and went back to Birmingham, where I went in the 11th grade at Midfield High School, and I was there for a year, and then I moved over to Chelsea, and I graduated from Chelsea High School. I was there for 1 year, and that's when I met my wife. Was in between the 11th and 12th grade in Birmingham. I didn't know it was going to be my wife. We were both 16, and fell in love, and so we kept dating, and I worked over in Birmingham. I went to work. My first real job was in the grocery business. I started with Winn-Dixie and worked for them. I was a bag boy while I was going to high school. Well, I take that back. I had another job before that. I shouldn't leave that out. it's pretty important. I worked for Bart Starr Lincoln Mercury. Clean the building at night after football practice. Go clean the building. I got to meet Bart Starr himself. I was bent over cleaning a trash can out, and I felt somebody standing over me. And I looked up, and it's Bart Starr standing there. I was like in amazement. I'm an Alabama fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, Alabama quarterback.
I said I won't hold that against you.
Well, you know, which, you know, that's where I was born and raised,
Yeah,
so I brought it with me.
That's awesome.
And you know, he stuck his hand out for me to shake it, you know, and I said, no, I've had my hands in the trash can. He said, son, he says, you're a working man. He says, I always want to shake the hand of somebody that's working. So he was really a good guy.
Yeah.
He was a good guy. And so that was before I started working at Winn-Dixie. And I left there and I went to work for Winn-Dixie, and that's pretty much where I started learning my work ethic.
Yeah.
I was working in the grocery stores and learning about products and dealing with distributors and all. And I left Winn-Dixie and went to Liberty Supermarket, which was up the road, making a little bit more.
Yeah.
And still doing night crew. And so I got a call from my brother who was living in Atlanta, and I'd always spoken to him about wanting to, you know, be in business for ourselves. And I was going to UAB at the time. And he says, okay, he says, you want to start a business? And I said, oh yeah, oh absolutely. And he says, well, his wife's name was Cindy at the time, and he said, Cindy and I were going to break up, and he says, I think right now would be a good time to start a business. So I moved over to Smyrna, you know, where we are, and that was 1976. And we opened up a place called the Scavenger's Nest in 76. And what it was, if you remember, have you ever seen Storage Wars?
Oh yeah.
Storage Wars. Well, that's what we were doing in 1976. We started buying up stuff and reselling it. And where we got the idea was there was a place called Peachtree Salvage that was in Belmont Hills. And people were just going there like crazy, and they were getting all their stuff from UPS and reselling it. You know, they got everything. They get everything in the world. So we thought, well, you know, maybe we can do the same thing. We did Scavenger's Nest in 76. And that's how long, that's when we started the business, called the Scavenger's Nest. And I can continue on with it.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of stuff to be learned from your story already. Like, so the moving around, do you think that played a big part in your success today? Because I think having to like make new friends, and it feels like you were moving so often, and a lot of times you hear stories of people that move around like that and they hate it, but it sounds like you kind of adapted and made friends along the way. So is there a lesson there in that, being able to adapt to situations like that?
Well, sure. I mean, you just, with any situation, you try to get the good out of it. And that's basically what I focused on. It was troubling going from high school to high school, because you would be working on something that was working out for you.
Yeah.
Like when I was in Valdosta, I left Valdosta, you know, I was on the school board. You know, I made it to where it was voted in and was able to be a part of the, you know, the class and everything, and then just moved away. Had a girlfriend. You know, my wife's glad of that. So.
It worked out.
Yeah.
You're glad too.
Yeah.
I love that though.
I'm very happy of course I am.
Making the best of every situation.
Right. And when I moved over, it's hard to remember everything, but when I moved over from here to Smyrna, a little bit after that in 77, that's when my wife came over from Birmingham and we got married.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
I don't want to leave that out.
What was it that made you want to start your own business? Like, what do you think that was?
Oh, it might have been stories from my grandmother telling me about growing up. My grandfather on my mother's side had a country store, and she's told me stories about being there. And then they grew into having the local telephone company in Pineapple, Alabama.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
And there's a lot of stories there, and I liked it, hearing those stories. So I think that I always wanted to be my own person.
Yeah.
And there's another part of it, as how it went, was how I financed it. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
My dad gave me a 1956 Glastron boat. And let's see, when I was in the 11th grade. He gave it to me. He'd had it all this time. So I spent all winter working on it.
Yeah.
And I sanded it down, made it look like new, had a 35 Evinrude on it. And I traded it in and got another boat that needed to be worked on. And I spent all winter on it. So to make a long story short, I sold it, and that's how I financed starting the company.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I had $3,000. That's what I came over and started with my brother.
That's so cool.
He sold his Corvette, and I sold my boat.
And that's how y'all started.
That's how we started.
Very cool. So how long do y'all rock on as the Scavenger? What was it called again?
The Scavenger's Nest.
How long did that business go, and tell us the journey of that?
Okay, Scavenger's Nest, we had in Belmont Hills, and it was a buy-sell store. And there was a store that was across the street. Belmont Pond was the name of it. And he was a little bit jealous of us because we could buy stuff the same day and sell it. He had to hold it 30 days, which is, I understand, where he was coming from, but I didn't know anything about the pawn business at the time.
Yeah.
And so he was complaining us and went to the city. Matter of fact, he went to the city and they rewrote the laws where we had to hold things 30 days as well.
No way.
Yeah. So that was fine, but he still remained real jealous of us. And his jealousy actually ended up helping the future of our business.
Oh, wow.
Believe it or not. One day, when I was in the store, remember I told you about we did like storage wars, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
we never knew what we were going to get.
Yeah.
So one day a tall gentleman came in a dark suit, and he said, "Do you sell ammunition?" And I said, "No, we don't sell ammunition. We never know what we're going to get." He goes, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah." And then I remembered I had one box of 12 gauge dove and quail load shells that came in like 2 or 3 months earlier, sitting on the shelf back there. So I went and I grabbed that box and I set it down, took dust off, set it down from, "Here you go. This is what we have." I said, "We never know what we're going to get." He says, "You're kidding, right?" I said, "I don't know what you mean." "No, this is all we have. We never know what we're going to get." He says, "You can't sell ammunition without a federal license."
Ooh.
And I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "I didn't know, I'm sorry." And he showed me his federal badge. And he says, "The guy across the street called and reported you and wasted my time for this one box of ammunition." He says, you have a shotgun?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Just take it home, use it." Oh, I said, "Okay, fine, no problem." And I said, "Well, listen, while you're here, what does it take to get into the ammunition and firearms business?" And that's how I started.
No way.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's the cool story.
How did y'all come up with the name, and when did y'all decide to change the name to Venture Outdoors?
Okay.
So is that what started the adventure?
That's what got us, no. That's what got us knowing about how to get into the firearms business. So at that point, when he had done that and he'd gone to the city, he was really after us. So we said, "You know what? I think we'll just get in the pawn business too."
Yeah.
So we opened up, yeah.
I love that.
So we went and we were gonna have Smyrna Pawnbrokers because we were gonna name it after the city. And we found out he had an exclusive on the shopping center. So we moved down to Jonquil, which is not there any longer, but it was Jonquil Plaza. We opened up Smyrna Pawnbrokers down there.
Very cool. So it started, basically, that guy was trying to be a turd to y'all, and then it kind of sprung that idea of, okay, let's just go after.
Yeah, if he can treat people like he was treating people and do well and stay in business, well, what if you treated people fair and try to run a good business?
Yes.
I think it could do pretty good.
I love that.
And so we opened up Smyrna Pawnbrokers down the way. And so it did well in Jonquil Plaza. And a couple of years later, we bought property on Cherokee Street, which is now Windy Hill. We bought a house there. And we kept expanding it. And we'd gotten into the firearms business. The pawnbroker business kind of leads you into the jewelry business and firearms business. So we learned that. And it didn't say firearms. Smyrna Pawnbrokers didn't. So I was driving back from Birmingham one day, and the welcome center sign said, "Welcome to Georgia, the state of adventure." And that's where Adventure Outdoors came from.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah, and I said, starts with an A, so we'll be A in the phone book.
Yeah.
At the time, Yellow Pages was
Yeah,
a
that
big
was a big
deal.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, not anymore. But I liked it because of that, and it said, I just like the name, so that's where Adventure Outdoors came from.
It's a very
That's
catchy
awesome,
name.
Yeah.
And what year was that when that kind of got created? Adventure Outdoors, the name and the
Oh
brand.
gosh, I don't remember exactly what year it was.
Yeah,
It was in the 80s.
in the 80s.
And that's not the same location y'all are currently at now. This was across the street years ago, right? When y'all were
Right.
first started.
If you know where Old South BBQ is,
Mhm.
we're right next to
Oh,
it.
yeah.
And we've always been there. And there's a story with that too, with Old South BBQ.
Oh yeah.
When we were adding on, of course, we bought the property on the corner.
Mhm.
There used to be a palm reader there, and it had one of those big, huge hands. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
Palm
yeah.
reader with
Oh,
that
yeah.
big, huge hand. Well, the owner of Old South, they were so happy that we bought that property and took that hand down.
I bet.
Oh
Get
yeah.
that mess out of here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So y'all go pawn shop, and then Adventure Outdoors. Was the idea behind Adventure Outdoors to be solely in like the firearm industry, or was that just like a separate company from the pawn shops, and y'all kept the pawn shop going?
Well, yeah. What we did was we had added on to the back, and that's where we put all the firearms.
Okay.
And the whole, we used to, when we had the scavenger's nest, we were big into paperback books.
Mhm.
We traded paperback books, Harlequin, Romance, all of that. So I was like a library
That's cool.
of paperback books. It was quite a job keeping up.
Oh, I
keeping up
bet.
with it. So what we did was, at that point, we had all the paperback books in the back, and we had all the jewelry in the front.
Okay.
And so all the women that loved to read Harlequin romances would have to pass all the jewelry
Smart
to get to
business
the
move.
paperbacks.
Yeah,
you know?
that's smart.
And so that worked real well. And then we'd started the firearms business, but it was around in the front. And at the time, Lockheed was going so strong that we started having so many more customers coming in, firearms, and it just kept growing. And we decided, we can do better with these firearms than we can these paperback books. So we sold off all the paperback books to one person and opened up Adventure Outdoors
That's so cool.
in the back.
Now, so I know for us, we've been in business 3 years now, and it's very challenging starting a new business. Was there a lot of challenges up front when you guys started, or, how was that journey of starting the business?
Well, I can give you one that came along when we were, having the battle with Belmont Pond. I won't call out any names as far as who the city councilmen were, but there used to be a couple of city councilmen who used to like play poker in the back of that Belmont Pond. So he had their ear, and so they were really sicking the Smyrna Police Department and detectives on us.
Oh,
Like
wow.
we were doing something wrong, but we were doing absolutely nothing wrong. But they couldn't understand where we're getting all this stuff at the time.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That we were getting some really nice things, but we had our sources, and we didn't want to necessarily give up every way that we're doing it. But they didn't. They thought they were being like buying it from individuals, but we were not.
Yeah.
And so it took a little while to get that straight. But
Yeah.
once we got that straight with them, matter of fact, we had to hire attorneys. We were ready to file a suit with the city because we were being, treated wrong.
Yeah.
Tables turned there though, huh?
Yeah.
I feel like that city pretty much loves the Adventure Outdoors now.
Well, I mean, when you're around somebody enough and you find out that they're honest and they love the Lord, then you have a different interpretation of it.
That's awesome. So definitely some adversity there in the beginning with that, and then so Adventure Outdoors comes into play, and y'all just go hard in the firearm industry, because I mean now we know it's the largest one in the world.
Yeah.
So tell us how that journey unfolds of you guys growing, and is your brother still? How long did that partnership last? Did y'all stay together through most of it?
No. What happened as the business grew, and both my parents had moved over from Birmingham as well.
They moved back over here.
They moved over here, and so they were part of the business. And we're like any family, just being too close together. It was rough doing business and trying to grow the business and all the family turmoil and having differences of opinion of how much you want to grow.
Yeah.
And I was always the one that wanted to grow it
Yeah.
as big as it could be. And my brother was more of being satisfied with the way it was and all. And so I was rubbing him the wrong way. So he says, you need to buy me out. And I did.
Oh, wow.
It took me 16 years to pay him off, but I bought him out.
It was worth it though.
Well, yeah,
I
it'll be
love
worth
that.
Yeah.
So then y'all start the Adventure Outdoors journey, and then where were y'all at located? Because I know now how big the store is. Y'all just moved. When did y'all move to that big location?
Okay, we were there in Windy Hill. Remember I told you it was one, what was it, 2-bedroom house. One of those houses they built for Lockheed.
Yeah.
Man.
There, which was Cherokee. And so we added on to it 3 times.
Oh, wow. Because y'all just kept growing and growing and growing.
Kept growing. We added on it 3 times. And then once I bought him out, I bought another building around the corner that belonged to the Size brothers. You've heard of Size Printing?
I have heard of that.
Yeah, so they sold that building to us, and then they moved out to Ackworth.
Okay.
And so that's where they moved to and kept their business going. So we were there, and the building we're in right now at Adventure Outdoors, we've been there 12 years.
12 years. And how big is that building, roughly?
It's, if you count everything upstairs and downstairs, 80,000.
80,000
square
square foot.
Man, you
Right.
should never need to get a bigger building than that.
Yeah, we need a bigger one now.
Do y'all really?
That's
Oh, yeah.
awesome.
Oh yeah, we've grown out of it. And see, Smyrna Police Distributors, which is also our business that we started. I started it in 1986.
Mhm.
Remember that well because that's the phone number.
Yeah.
I put our phone number as the same as the year
year
we started. And I started that myself when my brother was there. And so it took over the building where Adventure Outdoors used to be,
Okay.
right around the corner.
Very
And that's
cool.
where it is now.
And what do y'all do with that company?
We're a distributor for police officers, and we sell everything a police officer needs from head to toe. We're the only distributor in the state of Georgia that can do that, because usually it's the officer, they'll have firearms and everything firearm related,
Mhm.
or they'll have clothing, everything clothing related, and that's separate. So we were able to put the two together. So
Very cool.
we have the firearms and we have all the clothing, the sewing, and everything that goes along with it.
Wow.
We have everything a police officer
One-stop
needs.
shop for them.
Yep.
That's really cool. And then y'all still to this day, y'all have how many pawn shops y'all still operate?
Yeah, we have 2. My middle son, Jason, runs those. We started with Smyrna Pawnbrokers. He turned that over to him. He was running that. And then he, on his own, realized there was a market, because we started in Smyrna, but we moved out to Ackworth.
Okay.
And that's where all of our kids graduated in high school,
Okay.
was, East Paulding.
Very cool.
And so he was very familiar with that area, and he said, well, there's a need here. And so he opened up Paulding Pawn.
Okay. So now y'all are still operating pawn shops, still got the police station or the police distribution, and then Adventure Outdoors. Is Adventure Outdoors where most of your focus is today? Or are you kind of overseeing everything?
Well, first, Eric is my oldest son,
Mm-hmm.
and he's the manager of Adventure Outdoors.
Okay.
And Jason's my middle son, and he's the manager of Smyrna Pawnbrokers and Paulding Pawn. And Nicholas is my youngest son, and he's the manager of Smyrna Police Distributors.
That's awesome.
Okay? So I separated them so they wouldn't fight,
Yeah. You learned a lesson with your brother.
Oh, yeah. And so I separated them, they wouldn't fight, and they can all grow in their own direction.
Very cool. What are the challenges with running a family business? Because that's something that I want to do later in my life.
It's difficult.
It is.
It's very difficult. You have to deal with jealousy. It's just there. You
Yeah.
can't help it. I'll do something for one, and the other's going to think I'm not doing enough for them.
Yeah.
So you have to worry about that. I have a thing called the fairness doctrine that I aggravate my wife with, and she gets mad at me for it. So, but I still bring it up. It's the fairness doctrine is you got to do equal for everybody, which is impossible.
Yeah.
It is.
You can't.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're going to do a little more here, but you try to be fair.
Yeah.
But you cannot be equal in everything that you do. So, but I did try to put each son in a position of where I thought they fit the job description the best,
Yeah.
because they all have their gifts.
Yeah. That's really cool. Well, I think I respect you for being able to pull that off, because you see so many times family businesses struggle to keep the family together and run the businesses, you
And
know?
a lot of times the kids are like ungrateful, you know, or they can't handle opportunity. You give them something and they just turn it into nothing. And all yours are really doing well with what you've gave them. So,
Well, they have, and you know, as a father and a leader of trying to grow the business, you know, I have a choice. I can be a micromanager and try to stay involved with every decision that's being made, or I can pull back and see what my sons are capable of, and that's the choice that I've made. I pulled back. I'm still involved with all of them, but I'm not in there day in, day out, you know, with every detail of the business.
You're letting them fly.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Really cool. And they're doing doing a phenomenal job. They're all growing their own, you know, their own business in their own way. I'm very proud of them. Their mother and I are very proud of them.
You got a lot of grandbabies nowadays too, don't you?
Yep, I have 10.
That's what I thought.
That's amazing.
10.
When did you really start? Because I mean, my whole life we've went over to Adventure Outdoors, and that's been like the pinnacle. Me and my buddy Zach Wheeler, every time he buys a gun, he's like, let's go to Adventure Outdoors. And it's just like, you guys have built such a successful model. When did that start really unfolding? Like when did you feel like I'm on to something, and when did you start feeling that success?
Well, you remember when I told you about how I sank my teeth in business, in the grocery business?
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly where it came from.
The grocery business.
When I was working in the grocery business, because grocery stores, they have everything that the public wants, and then the individual person comes in, the shopper, customer comes in, and they decide from a selection. Well, that's why I set up Adventure Outdoors.
That's so cool.
Because I try to have everything possible that a customer could want, and where they can come in and make the selection.
Only got to go to one place if you got it all.
That's right. And what happens is that other stores, when a customer goes to their store and they don't have what they're looking for, they can say, go to Adventure Outdoors, they have it.
Wow. That's really cool.
Y'all got a restaurant in there too now, right?
Well, we did.
Okay.
But COVID got it. And I tell you, you know, the hardest thing right now is employees. Being able to find enough employees.
Yeah.
It's getting better, but for a while, we could not keep enough employees though.
And I bet y'all have a big payroll of staff that has to fill that place. How many employees do y'all average or need to average?
We like to keep around 110 to 120 employees.
Wow.
Throughout all the companies.
That's amazing. That's a lot of mouths to feed. That's a lot of guns to sell.
Well, you remember it's 3 different companies.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the most of them are at Adventure Outdoors.
Yeah, that's a big place, man. Well, cool. We'll take a break here, and then we'll dive in a little deeper.
Real quick, guys, this is Rob with the Wheeling Agency. I just wanted to reach out to y'all. We've been in business a little over 3 years here in Paulding County. We take pride in serving our community, so next time you're in the need for some insurance, give us a call and reach out. Now get back to the show.
So I know you shared about, you know, Smyrna kind of giving you a hard time when you were starting, and that guy bringing up all kind of stuff, trying to get you in trouble, what have you. But have you dealt with, in the world that we're in today, with people wanting to, you know, do away with the Second Amendment? Have you dealt with anything crazy, being the largest gun owner in the country? Have you had any adversity there in recent years?
The entire industry has been affected by politics.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. And it's kind of split between people that want to purchase firearms for investment, because they know that there'll be less and harder to get, so the price increases. And then there's those that realize that they need to purchase a firearm for self-protection.
Yeah, for protection.
So we ride a roller coaster in our business of what goes on politically, and what happens in the public when they have shootings.
Oh yeah.
That's unprecedented happening now. You know, it's really something that we, for years, never had a thing like that at all.
Yeah.
I mean, they had ROTC where people brought guns to school, and it's never an issue. Guns haven't changed.
Yep, you're so right.
Something different. So it has been a drive for our business. We don't want to be busy for those reasons, but it does happen. And there's the side that wants to do away with the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
And, and we fought that. In the early 2000s, Michael Bloomberg was planning on running for president, and he sued 12 firearms dealers across the country, and we were one of them.
No way.
Yeah, he sent in a man and a woman that were playing a role, like they were boyfriend and girlfriend, and the woman didn't know a lot about what she wanted, and the man was helping her out, which is, I'm sorry, but that happens a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah. And so we have our employees out, they're 100% trained. There's a thing called straw purchase. And you're not allowed to purchase a firearm instead of someone else. Okay, it's like if you came to me and said, hey Jay, go buy this gun for me. That would be a straw purchase.
Yeah.
Now, if you were, you wanted a hunting rifle, for instance, and I'm your friend, I could buy one and give it to you as a present.
Yeah.
It's 100% legal, but you can't take the place of someone who it's for. You follow what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
It's called a straw purchase.
And that
You
makes
can't do
perfect sense.
Yeah, and so Michael Bloomberg at the time was running for president the first time. And so he was making a name for himself, and because he was the mayor of New York City. So they hired these two private investigators that went around, and they came in our store, and they had recorders in their hats, they had a recorder and everything in their purse. We did everything perfect to the T. We even had the woman sign on the 4473. The 4473 is the document you fill out when it's a federal document that you fill out when you're buying a firearm. We had her initial on there that she was buying a gun for herself. And, making sure, because we worked very close with the ATF, and that we'd found that a lot of people would say, oh, I didn't read it.
Yeah.
So we'd implemented that to where we make everyone initial.
That they read it.
That they're buying it for themselves. So you sign at the bottom and you initial that question.
Wow.
All right, so we'd had her do that. Their cameras and their microphones both failed before the sale was even completed. So the Michael Bloomberg in the city of New York sued us anyway. Within 6 months with the female, she was at her mom's house with her mom's boyfriend. There was a double homicide, suicide, no witnesses with the female.
No way.
Yes, that happened within 6 months.
Good grief.
And then so the man that was with him decided he didn't want to have anything to do with it. He just,
I bet.
yeah. So they had written statements from them, but they didn't have anything from the recordings. And then I had all my paperwork. So it was all perfect. And he sued me anyway, just because they thought that we wouldn't fight back.
Yeah.
I did fight back. And we took them all the way up to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals and beat them. Beat
That's
Michael
awesome.
Bloomberg.
What was he trying to get from suing you guys? Trying to get y'all shut down, essentially?
Basically trying to be able to run our business. They wanted to have a thing called a special master come in and overlook our store. And which some of that did happen. Some of that did happen because we negotiated it out. But they wanted access to all of our records. And that's the big thing that we would not allow.
Yeah.
That we would not allow the city of New York or Michael Bloomberg to have access to our customers.
Man.
And so I fought them. I spent $1 million of my own money fighting.
Good for you though, man.
Yeah, but we won. We beat him.
That's awesome.
And the city of New York spent over $4 million
Trying to take you down.
trying to take us down. And we took them all the way up. And the Second Circuit Court of Appeals is right beneath the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So you'll know. When all this went down, and it took several years for it to happen and finish up, we went before Jack Weinstein, who was appointed by Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Wow.
He lived to be 99 years old, and he retired from being a judge at 98. So that's who he had.
Good grief.
He was the same judge that handled the Agent Orange case.
Man.
So he's a very famous judge.
Yeah.
So I got to spend time with him, going back, speaking with him. We were on two sides of the fence. And just like with Michael Bloomberg, we're on two sides of the fence, but amazingly, we got along fine.
Yeah.
Michael Bloomberg even told me, he said, look, Jay, he said, at this point, I realize that you haven't done anything wrong, but this is so much bigger than you that you need to step aside.
Yeah.
You know what I told him? I said, I'll work at McDonald's to fight you.
Yeah.
And he grinned and liked it.
That's awesome. So you really believe in the Second Amendment?
Oh, I believe in our industry. I believe in the Second Amendment in our industry more than I do my business.
Yeah. And why is that?
I was raised that way.
Yeah.
I was raised up hunting with my father, hunting with all his brothers. His mother, she used to go hunting, and she stopped hunting when she was 90 years old.
That's awesome.
So it's a family of being in the woods and enjoying it.
Yeah. And I mean, for me too, it's like, not to get down a political road, but I just feel like the history of our country should show us the need of the Second Amendment. And just because you eliminate guns doesn't mean that the bad guys aren't going to have the guns. So for me, it's really feeling protected as well. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Well, it's about upholding the Constitution.
Yeah.
And our forefathers were wise in the way that they wrote it. That the individuals should have the power, and the government serves the individuals.
Yeah.
And you have those that are more federalist, and they feel like the government should be in control, and the people don't have the wisdom to control themselves. And that's the opposite. And that's where we are today.
Yeah, it's so true. So are you guys in today's world, that was in the early 2000s, do you still experience grief? Has there been any cool stories?
Yeah, it's a constant battle. Matter of fact, month or so, or probably pushing 2 months ago, we had Ron DeSantis came to our store to give a speech and do a book signing. And then ironically, we had 23 special inspectors from all over the country. Now, these weren't inspectors that just from Georgia as normal. These were from Miami, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, all over the country, and came and inspected our entire store.
Right before he got there.
Right before he got there.
Coincidence.
Opened every single box in our store and checked the serial number. Went through every single record of 4473s that we had to be inspected.
Man.
Out of all the 4473s that we had, they found 3 paperwork errors. So we're quite proud of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So there's still some adversity to what y'all are doing.
Well, I mean, coincidence?
Yeah, I think not. That's awesome.
But let me tell you this, they did do one thing for us. They didn't come on the day that he was there.
That was
so they could have.
Yeah.
They could have. So we appreciated that.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad y'all got through that. But
we did.
But
it's still scary. You know why? Because President Biden has said that I'm going to get the dealers. I'm not going to accept any mistakes. One mistake, and I'm going to go after them.
Yeah.
And that's what he said.
Wow.
0 tolerance. And so we were very afraid.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because that's your livelihood.
That's my livelihood.
That's 120 people's livelihood.
I've spent my whole life building these companies.
Yeah.
And it's not just one mistake that I make. It's one mistake that one employee makes.
That shows how good you do at training your staff to keep them prepared for anything.
I'll tell you what we are. We're paranoids about doing things right.
Yeah. Well, I
We
think
really
you
are.
have to be.
We really are.
You have to be in that industry. So I know a lot of the stuff that you do from the Truth and Nature standpoint. I wanted to talk a little bit about Truth and Nature because I know you play a big part in that. So tell us about Truth and Nature, what that is for the people who don't know, and kind of what you guys do with that.
Okay. Truth and Nature is faith-based ministry for boys without fathers in their life. And how we became involved, about 12 years ago, we were asked to be a part of a fundraiser for them at a clay shoot. And so that's when I met Jeff and Carrie Davis, who are the founders of Truth in Nature. And the story behind them is they can't have kids for themselves. So the Lord led them to start Truth in Nature. I'm talking about Jeff had a great computer job. He had an opportunity to travel the world. All those things were laid out before him, but he knew where he was pointed, and he kept with Truth in Nature. So when I went to this clay shoot and I was hearing all about it, I knew that everything that they were doing and representing was me.
Wow.
And I was standing there looking at their trailer that they had Truth in Nature written on it and had the cross. And it was like the Lord spoke to me and he says, Jay, you're going to support this ministry. And I said, yes, sir.
Yes.
So I went and asked and I said, you know, we would like to step up our sponsorship, you know, and they had Ragsdale Heating and Air was their main sponsor at the time. And I said, would they mind if we step up with them and sponsor just the same? And, you know, of course, Art, he's a great guy. And he's, oh, no, just that's the way he does, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we've been supporting them ever since. 3 years back, there's another story to tell. It's pretty amazing, and it just shows how God works. My son, Eric, had seen something on the internet about this property for sale in Rockmart. And so he told Nicholas, and Nicholas said something to me. So I went up there to take a look at it. And it was all fenced off and, you know, with a chain and everything. You couldn't get in there. So we stepped off and walked down the road. It has a mile-long road on it.
Oh, wow.
It's, I think, 550 acres, somewhere along that line. And I'm walking down this road, and the sky kind of opened up, and there was that same, Jay, you're going to buy this place, and it's going to be where Truth in Nature's home is, and it's going to grow from there. And I said, yes, Lord, you know. And so, and at the time, it was really, I wanted to tell Jeff and Carrie. I wanted to be able to tell them, but I couldn't tell them because I didn't have it sealed in the contract.
Yeah.
And there'd been a couple of things that had happened, people that were trying to buy the property. The first one was, there was a guy that had made a contract. It's with who owned it was a hospital in Tennessee. And so he made a contract with him. Everything was set up and he died. So he couldn't buy it. And then the second one came along that was going to buy it. He was dishonest. And what he had done, he'd set it up with them to buy the property and they were going to finance it for him. And so he was going to have all the timber cut off of it, take the money and walk. He didn't have the timber rights. So someone saw him there, set up there with the trucks, called the people in Tennessee, let them know, and they were able to stop it all. And then of course we came along and they knew that we were going to take the property and put it back to its original concept of making the difference in young people's lives. And that's what it was. It was the property was years ago was called Anawake, and it was started in the 60s, and it had them all over the South, and it was a government help sponsor program for troubled youth, and it was boys and girls.
Oh, wow.
And the one we bought happened to be for girls, you know, at the time. And so the owner of that did some things he shouldn't have done, and they was taken out of the program like he should be. And then the hospital bought it in Tennessee, and they had closed it 3 or 4 years before we got to it. And it was in disrepair. They'd stolen all the copper out of it, and just all kinds of terrible things. But God has shown his power. They've moved, Truth in Nature moved in, and we're just bringing it back to life. Couple of weeks ago, and this has happened more than once. We had over 20 young men be brought to the Lord and saved on that property and baptized.
That is so cool, man. I just love the fact that God is being shown through nature and through that, those kids that don't have a dad, you're taking them into the woods, showing them how to fish, showing them how to hunt.
Yep.
And bring, like, that just goes to show that you can bring Christ to everything that you do.
That's right.
That's one of the biggest problems I feel like right now in general is the lack of dads out there. So just
It's
having
the pandemic.
an organization that can do that and give those kids what they need is awesome.
Well, the way it works, we have mentors that are interested in doing. They sign up and they have to go through a program and they have to have a background check. And so these guys are just 100% sincere in what they want to do. And so we have a ratio that Jeff and Carrie has set up, a ratio of how many mentors we have, per boy. And so it's just worked perfectly. And we went from 1 chapter in Dallas, Georgia to 25 across the country.
No way. Time. So it's growing outside of our state even.
Oh yeah.
That's so cool, man. That fires me up right there.
We've had boys that have gone through the program, joined the military, part of the military, and are now mentors.
That's so cool.
Giving back again.
I love that. I love that Jesus is on display in that organization.
He's showing out.
And I've seen it.
He's showing out.
They come and talk to us at Rotary, and the guy who runs it, he's just a great dude. You can just see his spirit and everything he does.
Well, Jeff and Carrie, like I said, who started it, and there's some other folks that are in there that are part of it too.
That's amazing. And we'll drop some information when we post this, people who want to support that, because it's a great ministry. So.
It's Truth in Nature. You can look it up easy on the internet.
Cool.
They've got a great website.
I love how you didn't doubt God though in that moment. Like he showed you this is the place for them, and you said, okay.
Oh, you wouldn't have doubted it either.
When you heard it, yeah.
No, and here, listen to this part. And this is really something too. Sometimes I think I have too many stories.
I love it.
But Jeff had a deal worked out in Dallas, Georgia. And I finally was able to, once I signed the paper and I gave them a check of down payment, I had it cinched. So I went to Jeff and I said, okay, I got something I want to tell you. And I said, I'm going to show it to you. And he goes, oh, okay. And so I showed him the property because the real estate people had made a demonstration of the property showing the creeks. It has a 30-foot waterfall on it, a huge lake.
Wow.
It's just wonderful. It's as nice as any state park.
Wow.
Okay. And so I showed it to him and he goes, yeah, that's nice, Jay, that's nice. And I said, well, that's going to be the next home of Truth and Nature. What do you think? Well, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it. And so we set up a time and we went and walked in there, and it was rough. I'm not joking. It was rough. I mean, there were those little plastic bags everywhere. You know what I'm talking about? Little small plastic bags, and they were just they wouldn't prosecute anybody that came back there. They wouldn't do anything. And I showed it to Jeff, and I said, well, what do you think? And he goes, I don't know, man. I gotta pray about it. And Carrie's kicking him. You know? Yep. I can pray. So he did, and of course, it came to him a week later. And this is not something that the other people knew about or anything. A week later, he got a letter from the other folks where they were keeping their place. They were being dismissed from the property.
God's timing.
I mean, it gives me chill bumps.
Yeah, I know. That's amazing, man. And I love the fact that you brought faith into the conversation. How has faith played a role in all your stuff that you've done with building your businesses and everything?
Well, I mean, faith, I can take you back to my grandmother when I was a little kid. And on her dresser, she had a picture of what we think Christ looked like. Because nobody has a picture of Christ, right?
Yeah, no.
We have a picture of Christ. And I said, that picture there. And she goes, yeah, that's Christ. Did you know that he'll forgive you of all your sins if you just ask him? Just ask him. Just say you want him to forgive you of your sins and believe in him. And then he'll accept you into his fold. And I said, that's all you have to do. Accept Christ as your Savior. And I said, well, that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
And so, that's from that moment I've pursued it. And so God has led me to the point of understanding the Spirit and feeling the levels. Accepting Christ as your personal Savior is the beginning.
That's right. That's the starting line.
That's the starting.
Yeah.
And as you grow within it with the Spirit, He gives you information and takes you further along. And you just have to open yourself up to it. And so I do my best to open myself up to it. And He's shined on me very much.
I love that, man. Alex always has a question that we like to ask to end it off.
And just going through your whole story, all those businesses, travel, everything that you have been through has been incredible, and we're blessed to be able to hear it. But one thing we always like to ask is kind of the reason we started Pave the Way is to help the people that are you at 18, are you 3 years ago buying that property, or are you 20 years ago trying to make something happen? So what piece of advice would you give to someone who's trying to pave their way right now to maybe not become you and own Adventure Outdoors, the largest ammunition and gun store in the United States, but maybe they're trying to start their business, or maybe they're getting their brother just called them and they want to start something. What advice would you give to them?
Well, number one, I'm going to say is love the Lord. That's number one, because without God in your life, you're of this world, and being just of this world is a place you don't want to be. It's a place you don't want to be. And secondly, believe you can accomplish anything that you're willing to set your mind to, and you're willing to give the fortitude to accomplish. I've had people ask me that. So what's your reasoning for success? And the easiest thing that I can say is the fear of failure. That's it.
The fear of failure.
The fear of failure.
Man, that's good. Well, man, I thank you so much for coming on. It's been an awesome show, getting to know your story and hear everything about you, what you're doing. And I'm just honored to have you on the show. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Sir. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jay.
Yep, sure thing.
Good work.
What?
Wow, that was good.